Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna. On behalf of the Pune team, that means today I and Vrinda, welcome all of you today's session. Today we cover chapter 6 and he's going to talk about the Dhyana Yoga. So in the yesterday's session, Prabhuji talked about the Karma Yoga and now we are moving towards chapter 6 of Dhyana Yoga. So with this, I request Madan Sundar Prabhuji to take over the session. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pashyatadi Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gau Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we welcome you all for today evening program. So are we still live?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Because screen in front of me went black, so I wasn't sure. So Hare Krishna, we welcome you all for today evening program, today Monday evening, and we'll be starting our discussion on chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. We are doing a course right now titled as Gita Essence, Overview of Bhagavad Gita, based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So yesterday we had discussed chapter 5, titled as Action in Krishna Consciousness. So here in this chapter we saw how Lord Shri Krishna went into the details of Karma Yoga, and the conclusion of it was Karma Yoga is easy and practical as compared to the path where a person has to renounce his activities. To renounce one's activities has a prerequisite, and the prerequisite is one's mind must have become purified enough so wherein he does not have any material desires or for desires for gratification. So to take a path of renunciation of work, Krishna says, is not easy, is not practical majority of the audience. Therefore, Arjuna, you being conditioned also by the Kshatriya spirit, for you also the best path, the safest route, and the easy route for progress in spiritual life is indeed Karma Yoga. So how do I practice Karma Yoga, Arjuna asked. Lord Shri Krishna said, very first thing that we need to do to practice Karma Yoga is to keep mind and sense, to keep mind and senses under control. Second thing, act without attachment. And lastly, act with body, mind, and senses only for the purpose of the purification. So keeping mind and senses under control is what Lord Shri Krishna told Arjuna. And chapter 6 begins with this question: how do I control my mind? And what is the importance of controlling mind? And that is why this chapter is titled as Dhyana Yoga, wherein Lord Shri Krishna is going to go into details of, first of all, the importance of mind, how mind can act as a friend or as an enemy. And to help us understand how we can control the mind, Lord Shri Krishna talks about the process of Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga process, another process of yoga, through the practice of which Lord Shri Krishna explains that one can control one's mind. However, when Lord Shri Krishna explains the process, then Arjuna exclaims that this is not possible to do so. And then Lord Shri Krishna explains what is the most practical way of controlling one's mind and senses. So, if you take a look in the world around, in the whole world today, there are millions and millions of people who are practicing yoga. Majority of them today practice what is called as Hatha Yoga, who is a subset, which is a subset or another name for Ashtanga Yoga. And the prime focus is on the gymnasm or gymnastics of Ashtanga Yoga, where the idea is to keep one's body fit and maybe mind little relaxed, but they don't have a proper understanding or the complete understanding of the aim of Ashtanga Yoga. In fact, we'll see in today's subject matter what is yoga, who is a true yogi, and what is the most practical yoga prescribed for the age of Kali Yuga. Is Ashtanga Yoga a practical solution, or else, as Lord Shri Krishna describes the process of rules and regulations of Ashtanga Yoga, in fact, it becomes evident the practice of Ashtanga Yoga is impractical for the purpose of self-realization for the present day and time. And why? Because in a current day, a current age which is surcharged with temptations and distractions, it is very difficult to renounce our activities to go and live in the forest, which is one of the prerequisites of Ashtanga Yoga. Therefore, Krishna says, in the world of temptations, it is not easy to renounce, but dovetail our activities in the service of the Lord. And that process we'll see as a session begins to develop. So this is just a gist of it, what this chapter talks about. What is yoga? What is the importance of controlling mind? And who is the topmost yogi? These are few of the key subject matter discussed here. So as we generally discuss the acronym for every chapter, here is the acronym for 6th chapter. E for the acronym is easy. And let's begin with the first E, where Krishna talks about enemy or friend. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, a controlled mind is one's greatest friend. An uncontrolled mind is one's greatest enemy. How many of you have experience of hearing two voices within you? One voice tells you to do it, another voice tells you not to do it. Have you had that experience? Yes or no? You may type in the chat box, so at least I know that we are able to communicate. So Krishna explains what are these two voices. Krishna says this is nothing but the voice of our mind, where the mind, Krishna says, can be a foe, which means enemy or a friend, if the mind is controlled. And Krishna says as follows in 6th chapter, verse number 5, Udharat atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayat atmaiva hi atmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanaha. Udhar, one should deliver oneself with the help of the mind. Natmanam avasadayat, one should not avasadayat, one should not destroy oneself with the help of mind. Atma eva hi atmano bandhu, when the mind is controlled, it becomes bandhu, which means the friend. Atma eva ripuratmana, an uncontrolled mind is one's greatest enemy. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna advises in the following verse, 6th verse of 6th chapter, where Krishna says one should strive to conquer the mind. When the mind is conquered, then mind becomes one's friend. Wherein mind is unconquered, it remains uncontrolled and remains the greatest enemy. We'll talk about it in a short while in more details. And Krishna says here, Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmanajitah anatmanastu shatrutve vattitatmaiva shatruvat. For him, one who has conquered the mind is the best of the friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. This is the verdict and the version of Bhagavad Gita. Let's take a help of psychology to a little bit introspect and discuss the subject matter of the two states of mind, where mind acts as an enemy, otherwise mind acts as a friend. So according to psychology, mind can be said to be in two states. One is healthy and another is unhealthy state of mind. What is an example of a healthy state of mind? Let's say you have a glass half full. How would a person respond? There are two situations. For a similar situation, there are two possible responses. One person may say, oh, I'm so grateful, the glass is half full, whereas the other person may complain why it is half empty. And this is what describes mind to be healthy or unhealthy. In other words, a healthy mind is characterized by gratitude, is characterized by feelings and response and reactions of love and compassion for one and all. Whereas the ungrateful mind or unhealthy mind is characterized by complaint, whining, and finding faults. You take such a person with unhealthy state of mind into the best of the locations, even at that place. Imagine you're standing in a window, you're staying in a 5-star resort, far away from the city life. Let's say Mahabaleshwar, very beautiful place. You go up there living in an incredible resort, a beautiful moonlit night. Your cottage is right there on the top of the hill. And you open the window and a cool breeze is blowing. You look out the window and there you have this magnificent Krishna river where water is glittering because of the moonshine. And the wind that is blowing is carrying the fragrance of the forest flowers. How many of you would be happy to be in that situation? Whereas a person with an unhealthy state of mind may find some other problem. For an example, he may say, अरे क्या है यहाँ पर भी फोन का सिग्नल नहीं आता, रिलायंस वालों का नेटवर्क तो बहुत ही खराब है, उदाहरण के लिए. Just an example in that sense. So this is what is characterized by unhealthy or healthy state of mind. In other words, if a person carry a thought of scarcity, we will be surrounded by scarcity. If we carry positive thoughts, we will find ourselves content. And if we have negative thoughts, then we are always complaining and whining or comparing. And even the sweetest relationship can become miserable. This is the degree of influence of our thinking on the quality of life, which implies the quality of life depends on the quality of thoughts. Your thoughts form the world around you. To help you understand, a small diagram that I have drawn to help you understand this concept. Our thoughts determines our belief system. And our belief system determines our lifestyle, which means behavior. And how we behave, how we live our life, further determines or strengthens the thoughts that we cultivate. And like this, it becomes a cycle. If we want to change our behavior, if we want to change our response, it begins with changing our belief system. And to change our belief system, we need to change our thoughts. We need to fix our thinking. It all begins, if you say, it all depends on the belief system in one sense. To give an example, how we behave depends on the belief system. To give an example, I verified before giving you this example when the session started. So I took out a $2,000 bill or the $2,000 currency, If you take out the note right now, if it is in your pocket, maybe 100 rupees, 500 rupees, whatever currency, if you take it out and see carefully, although because it is in your possession, you may claim it to be yours. You may be very attached to that currency, but that currency very carefully clearly says it belongs to Reserve Bank of India. And if, for God's sake, Narendra Modi decides to do a second surgical strike today evening of demonetization, tomorrow morning this 2000 rupees currency note will not be even worth for you to eat chana. Bombay ka chana bada prasidh hai na? You'll not be able to eat that chana or that 2000 rupee currency. That's how this note will become useless. But because it is in my hand, this paper gives me a feeling that this belongs to me. From where this sense comes? Belief. It is all depending on the belief. To give you an example how all behavior is belief driven, I'll give you an example from the life of Srila Prabhupada. This is the case when Srila Prabhupada was still in married life as Abhay Charan Day in 1945, and Japan was dropping bombs on the city of Calcutta. Everyone was running into the shelter homes, and the neighbor of Abhay Charan Day, when he was running to shelter home, he saw Abhay Charan Day in his kitchen cooking kachori, frying kachoris. And this friend of Abhay Charan Day say, Abhay, what are you doing? Don't you hear? Don't you see the sound of the siren? Don't you hear the noise of the bomb explosion? The Japanese aircrafts are dropping bomb on Calcutta. We have to take shelter. We have to hide. And Abhay Charan Day, cool, composed, and he responded, if Krishna wants to kill anyone, nobody can protect him or her. And if Krishna wants to protect that person, nobody can kill that person. Srila Prabhupada turned back to his cooking and he continued to cook. That is the point. Behavior, all behavior is belief driven. And what is the belief? This indicates Srila Prabhupada's faith, which is a belief. And that's how we all behave in our life. I hope you're able to see the connection. So thoughts, if you want to change your behavior, we have to change our belief system. And to change our belief system, we need to change our thoughts, because the origin of it is the thoughts, which determines our belief and the behavior. Question comes, how do we change our thoughts? Our thoughts are formed by the association we keep. Association is of two kinds. Association of a person and association of information. We all know how association is contagious in terms of association of person. I would focus on the association of information. We are in an information age, bombarded continuously with all kinds of information. Somebody who is addicted to watching news, how do you expect his behavior to be? Probably irritable, fearful, political. Why? Because that's what the news shows him. Distrust. Imagine somebody has grown up only watching movies. What would be the picture of real life for such a person? Somebody all his life had watched all kinds of action movies or superhero movies. Imagine somebody is a big fan of Rajinikanth, the great South Indian actor. I have nothing against him because he is known for his dramatic performances. Imagine somebody is tuned to seeing him on TV and that's what he makes it as a reality of life. What would this person live in a real world? Where Rajinikanth actually in the movies is shown, for an instance, Rajinikanth comes out from the truck. He jumps down and there are 20 men standing in front of him to fight with him. Just picture it. I'm giving you a hypothetical example. It's been more than 15 years ago I saw the movie, but I'm remembering some big example where you will see the hero, the Rajinikanth, will put a cigarette in his mouth with all the style, will light up the cigarette, and then with all his style, throw the cigarette up in the sky, go around, beat the hell out of the 20 men, come back to the same spot, put his mouth up, and still the cigarette would fall in his mouth. This is not real life. This is only happens in picture. Yes or no? If somebody is used to watching this kind of situations, what would happen to his behavior? He cannot deal with the real world. That's the point. Similarly, similar effect happens when person are quite tuned to or they are used to reading books like fiction novels, like Harry Potter's, or different authors, fictional authors. Most of the writings, if they are not kids' books, are sensual writings. And that's how the feeling of anger, greed, lust becomes more strengthened in the behavior of such people. On the contrary, to give you an example of Srila Prabhupada going to America, interacting with the hippies, giving them the spiritual culture, giving them spiritual wisdom in the form of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, look what happened to the behavior of the hippies. Hippies were the special category or class of human being known for crossing all the limits of irreligious activities. Yet when they came in the association of Srila Prabhupada, the association of person and association of information, their behavior transformed and they became saintly. That's the whole point. In essence, change your thoughts, change your world. Thoughts are found by the association we keep. An association is of two types, information and people. So when our thoughts change, similarly, the reality of life changes for us. So what and how we can change the information intake for us? Rather than going and reading fictional books or watching movies, we can take to the reading of wisdom literatures, where for sure you'll find great role models for tolerance, compassion, love, empathy, courage, and whatnot in the scriptures as a real life are discussed there. When you regularly read about the lives of such great personalities and their contribution to the lives of others, their wonderful qualities, indeed, we will imbibe such qualities in our life, because that's what we have been meditating on, thinking about. And that's how we can change our life, change our behavior, change our belief system. And this is one way of controlling our mind. To do a quick comparison that Krishna brings out, so that was a little bit from the perspective of psychology, healthy and unhealthy state. So how do we change the unhealthy state of a mind to the healthy state of mind? It all depends on the association that we keep of a saintly person and information, the type of information. Accordingly, we develop saintly qualities. Krishna discusses what is the potential of the mind. For a controlled mind acts as a friend, whereas an uncontrolled mind acts as an enemy. Controlled mind follows the dictation of Guru and Gauranga, whereas the uncontrolled mind follows the dictation of the six enemies: lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, and envy. Controlled mind engages the person, or in other words, the person engages the mind in the service of the Lord, whereas uncontrolled mind controls the living entity and pushes him for the sense gratification. Controlled mind becomes or opens the or paves the way for liberation, because it can be happily engaged in spiritual activity, whereas the uncontrolled mind engages in fruitive material activity or in sense gratification. So the bottom line that Krishna says, if you want to be progressive in your spiritual life or even in material life, one has to learn to control the mind rather than being controlled by the mind. In general, those who do not practice yoga or any of the yoga system, which are delineated by Lord Shri Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, by large are the victims of the mind. And once a person takes to the yoga process, it is that time when a person learns the art of controlling the mind. So I would request our host to pull out the first poll.
Yes,
And
Prabhu.
the first poll, the question is just to see how much we have understood the subject. The first poll here is how to train our mind to become, okay, that's the first poll. Okay, let's go with this one. So what do you think? Is it easy or difficult to bring one's mind under control? Yes, no, easy, moderate, difficult, impossible. What do you think about it? Can we control the mind? Looks like Vrinda is giving affirmation. Very easy. So the poll is there on your screen. You can reply there. I guess maximum of them have replied probably by now. So as I see the result, maximum audience says difficult and few says moderate, and one person says impossible, and two people says easy. Those who are saying easy, please send me your number and contact address. I'll come and take the dust of your lotus feet. I've been trying to control my mind, not been successful. So I'll take some blessings from you. So we do have some advanced personalities here, nonetheless. All right, thank you, Mother Dipasha. Can we go for the next poll? So, and the next poll is how to train our mind to become our friends. That's a very important. So we just discussed this. So how do you think we can train our mind to become our friends? Option one, follow its dictation, which means my mind is already my well-wisher. Or second option, follow dictations of Guru Sadhu Shastras rather than that of mind. Third, follow advice of my atheist friend or relative. Or the fourth, watch prime time news and recent movies to train the mind. Hare Krishna. So that's the idea. Lord Shri Krishna speaks. In essence, uncontrolled mind will agitate, misguide us, and drag us down to the lower propensities. Whereas a controlled mind acts as a friend in the journey by helping us make progressive and healthy choices, which brings us peace and happiness. So how to control the mind? Krishna explains that in the second part of this chapter 2 or chapter 6, where A stands for Ashtanga Yoga. So we can share the results. So I'm glad 95% have given a correct answer, is to follow the dictations of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra means scriptures. Thank you, Mother Dipasha. If you can close the poll so I can see the screen. So Ashtanga Yoga. So Lord Shri Krishna from verse number 10 to verse number, literally to verse number 35 discusses about the process of Ashtanga Yoga. And here Krishna talks about what are the rules and regulations for Ashtanga Yoga. The very first thing, remember Ashtanga Yoga is after Jnana Yoga. And Jnana Yoga, a person is supposed to give up his, renounce his work, go to the forest. So Ashtanga Yoga is a next stage forward. So Ashtanga Yoga, Krishna says, it involves living in seclusion, practicing celibacy, and under strict regulations of eating and sleeping. First of all, foremost of it, for you to practice Ashtanga Yoga, as the rules are given in the scriptures, one would have to give up his family life, definitely his job, profession, whatever it is. Give up the comforts of your house or the city life. Person has to go live in the forest and perform Sivya Tapasya to control the mind and senses. Eat very meager, sleep very less, and sit in Dhyana Mudra for a long, long period of time, wherein through the process of pranayama, the regulated breathing, one tries to freeze the mind of all the desires. This Ashtanga Yoga have 8 limbs called as Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. And through the process of don'ts, which means Yama, Niyama means do's, like this the person practices. And he eats whatever falls from the tree on his own. He tries to minimize his body needs. So I believe all of you would find it a difficult process. Yes or no? How many of you think Ashtanga Yoga is actually a difficult process to practice the path of spirituality in the current day? According to scriptures, it's very difficult for the present day to practice the path of Ashtanga Yoga. To sit at one place for a long time is not that easy. It's very difficult. What to speak about other rules and regulations. In other words, this path is exclusively for renunciates. And there cannot be any delicious food like which is served in ISKCON Sunday feast and ISKCON programs like that. So that's the point here. So how did Arjuna responded when Arjuna heard this whole version of Ashtanga Yoga? And Arjuna said, "Mission impossible, my dear Lord. I cannot do it." Arjuna says as follows in 33rd verse, "O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me. For the mind is restless and unsteady." And in the next verse, the 34th verse, Krishna offers, or Arjuna speaks more about the nature of the mind. And Arjuna says, Chanchalam hi manha Krishna pramati ballavadradam tasyaham nigraham manye vayuriva sudushkaram. Arjuna says the mind is restless, chanchalam. Pramati ballavadradam is turbulent, very strong, very determined. Once it decides the mind wants to have something, we cannot change the mind's decision. So, nature of mind in a simplest form, Arjuna says, very first thing, flickering. Flickering refers to sankalpa vikalpa, where the mind keeps us telling us, yes, I will do it, and the very next moment, no, I will not do it. How many of you have had difficulties making decisions in your life? When it comes to decision making, you always keep on switching on your decisions. Maybe I should do it, maybe I should not do it. This is what means the nature of mind, the flickering, sankalp and vikalp. Accept, reject, accept and reject. That's what happens. So it raises doubts due to attachments. When our attachments are addressed, then it begins to raise doubt. Should I do it or not? Just like Arjuna prepared for war for 13 years, he comes on the battlefield. Wasn't he aware Bhishmitama, Dronacharya fighting on the side of Kauravas? What was the point asking Krishna to draw his chariot in front of the Kauravas army? And after seeing them becoming emotional does not make any sense if it was not because of the flickering nature of mind. Arjuna was very well aware that Dronacharya and Bhishmitama, although against their will, because of their loyalty to the kingdom, they're forced to act, and therefore he has to fight with them. Yet he became emotional and he said he will not fight. That's a whole example of flickering of the mind. And rationalizes attachments. Just like Arjuna gave 5 different reasons not to engage in war. He was just simply rationalizing his attachment to his relative. That's how the mind cheats us from a progressive living. That's about flickering. Second, obstinate and strong, which means once the mind decides, it becomes very difficult not to do it. I believe this is a 4th poll. We can take a feedback, Mother Dipasha.
Yes, Prabhuji.
What do you think about once the mind decides, mind wants to have something, then not to fulfill it becomes very difficult. Yes, no, not sure. Maybe Mother Dipasha will be sharing the poll right now. Yes, right up on your screen. I hope you are able to see the poll. To give you an example, this is many years ago when a working man had got connected with me and he was attending Gita program. So one day he told me that Prabhu, a few days ago, he came back late from his office, and before going off to sleep, he thought he'll just quickly watch TV for 5 minutes just to see what was the status of the cricket match. Some cricket matches were going on then. 11 o'clock, he switched on the TV, and when, as you know, when the over gets over, there is an advertisement. And in that advertisement, there was an ad of chow mein. At 11 o'clock in the night, he saw the ad of chow mein, and suddenly he developed a strong desire to eat chow mein. He became so restless. He went into his kitchen. There was no chow mein, there was no noodles, and he became so restless that he decided, I want to have a chow mein. He got onto his bike and he began to look from one restaurant to another in search of chow mein. And that search went on from one restaurant to another. He literally traveled all the 4 corners of Pune. Either when he reached the restaurant, they got closed, or which were open, they ran out of chow mein anymore. Finally, this person, disheartened, frustrated, came back around 1:30 in the night, totally frustrated, drank tea and slept off and had to bunk the next day office. What's the point? Obstinate and strong, once the mind makes it, it's very difficult not to do it. That's the reason when we talked about how to win lust, Krishna says it's easy to restrict the desires, to fulfill the desires at the level of the senses. But when it comes to the level of mind, it becomes very difficult. And how do we purify mind, and how does it all function? Intelligence, mind, and senses, how do they interact? This subject, which is in detail, we'll discuss in mind management series sometime in the future. So obstinate and strong, clings onto thoughts, attachments, and cannot get thoughts out. And the last, turbulent, hangama baj. It breaks down all walls, does not ask permission, which means Uncontrolled mind is very ruthless, can make us act in the most selfish, egoistic, and ungrateful ways. After a while, we wonder, how can I do so? A classic example is Ravana. He went on to kidnap Mother Sita against all the advices. Everyone told him not to do it. After he kidnapped Sita, still people told him not to do it. His brothers told him, Vibhishan, even Kumbhakaran told him not to do it. But no, I will not listen to anyone. I will enjoy Sita or else I will eat her alive, because he was a Rakshasa, a man-eater demon. He would not let live Sita by herself. She has to become an object of his enjoyment or else die. That is what the nature of mind. This is how the mind rebels. So how do we control the mind? I hope you're able to understand how difficult is to deal with the uncontrolled mind. So Arjuna asked, my dear Lord, I cannot. It's very difficult to control the mind by the process you described. Krishna says, yes, I do agree what you're saying. And therefore, I wish to give you the solution how to control the mind. In other words, Krishna agrees that Ashtanga Yoga is not the way or not the process for everyone to control the mind. So what is the way? Krishna says, 35th verse, Asamshayam mahabhau manodurni graham chalam abhyasen tu kanteya vairagyena ch grihate. Asamshayam mahabhau, O mighty arm, son of Kunti, I definitely agree with you. It's very difficult to curb the mind. How do we control the mind then? Krishna says, Abhyasena tu kanteya vairagyena ch grihate, by suitable practice and renunciation, vairaga. So what is this suitable practice and what is this detachment of vairaga? So Krishna explains. Of course, Krishna doesn't give out details. Prabhupada gives the details in the purport. Krishna would give details elsewhere later on in Bhagavad Gita. But Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport itself what Krishna means by abhyasa and vairagya. Abhyasa means practice. In any yoga path, there is yama and niyama. So this abhyasena refers to niyama, do's. What are the do's that we need to follow? We have to follow 9 processes of bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada, Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. So one who practices this 9 limbs of bhakti, through this one learns to control the mind. And the foremost of it is of hearing of scriptures on a regular basis. And that is what the abhyas we have to do. Hearing of scriptures and the hearing of the transcendental sound vibration of the holy names of the Lord. So what is detachment? What is vairagya? That refers to yama, don't. And the foremost of that is to give up the association, give up the bad association, give up the association of atheists, give up the association of any kind of information like movies, the news, and all kind of junk that just increases lust, anger, greed, diseases like this. It just intensifies our diseases rather curing our mental disease. To practice abhyasena means to hear regularly, just a basic idea I'm giving, and detachment is to give up the bad association. And if we do so, then Krishna says, yes, Arjuna, by these 2 steps, you can learn to control the mind. And who can here say it is not possible for me to do it? Do you find this approach that Lord Shri Krishna gives to Arjuna feasible, doable? How many of you say you can do it? It's far easier than Ashtanga Yoga. Say yes or no. Or you're still finding it difficult to control the mind, even through this simple approach. You may reply with yes or no. Yes means this is doable. To read scriptures, to hear scriptures, and to give up bad association. You don't have to give up anything. You don't have to give up your comfort, profession, but bring about some change. And we'll speak on the subject matter where some of you may be wondering, my life is so difficult, so busy, I don't have time. We'll talk about it in a short while. Arjuna began to think, my dear Lord, I have understood now. I know what path I have to choose, but my question is, what happens to those if one faithfully takes to this yogic process? In other words, Arjuna is still worried that he's not sure that would he be able to really control his mind. And he wonders if what happens if the person fails to control the mind even after taking to the process of bhakti yoga. What happened to a person who falls away from the yoga process? What happens to him? In other words, does he end up in a no man's land because he gave up all his material aspirations and material desires and he couldn't get spiritual upliftment also? So does he end up in no man's land? This brings us to the third section of this chapter, verse number 37 to 45, titled as Success or Failure, where Arjuna asked this question in verse number 37 and 38. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what is the destination of unsuccessful yogi who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but later desists due to worldly mindedness and does not attain perfection in mysticism?" What happens? So does he fall away from both spiritual and material success, or else he has some hope? So Krishna says, yes, there is a hope. In other words, Arjuna is trying to ask, what happened one who may not be sufficiently serious about following the process, so he follows the process for some time and then gives up, while even after constant endeavor and serious attempt, one may deviate from the path. So this is an example of a long practice. What happens to them? Krishna says, Arjuna, do not worry. Second chapter, 40th verse, Krishna have already established the fact. Neha vikramanashosi pratyavayo na vityate swalpamasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Hey Arjuna, on this spiritual path there is no loss. Even a short practice, even a practice for a moment can save one from the greatest danger. That's what Krishna says. And here Krishna says, Arjuna, in verse number 40 to 45, what is the destination of unsuccessful yogi? One who got distracted, deviated just after a short practice. He would enjoy on higher planets and then take birth in an aristocratic family in this world and would have an opportunity again to continue where he left in his spiritual journey. Whereas you might be a triple PhD in mathematics, chemistry, biology, and whatnot, when you take birth again, your parents indeed are going to send you to nursery, yes or no? How much ever you may say, Mama, I remember my past life. I was a PhD. I did PhD 3 times. Your mother is still going to send you to nursery because you don't remember what all accomplishments you had. It doesn't make a difference. But Krishna says, in spiritual life, not the same way. After long practice, if somebody got deviated after a long practice, such a person takes birth in the families of the devotees of the Lord and is provided with all the facility to make progress. So like this, Lord Shri Krishna affirms Arjuna, don't be scared, move forward. In other words, Lord Shri Krishna concludes the 6th chapter with a message. Arjuna, in all and every situation, be a yogi. Choose to follow the path of a yogi. So here, what is yogi? What is yoga? And what is the best form of yoga? And can a householder, a working man, take to the process of yoga is what I'm going to highlight in next 10 minutes before we conclude our discussion. So who is a yogi? We're having a little discussion on this topic. Yogi is a person whose lives and activities are oriented towards establishing his last relationship with the Supreme Lord. That is what yoga is, and this is what yogi is. Who has not gone to do some gymnastics to shake his body, shake his head or leg, to make his body slim and trim. Not that's the goal. The goal for yoga, yoga what means to connect. And that's the objective of a yogi. And that's how he called a yogi. Now, yogi has become a brand name. It has become a business model to earn money today, but that's not the way. What are the types of yogas? We already discussed in the 3rd chapter, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga that is, and Bhakti Yoga, which is probably behind me. You cannot see on the screen right now. Karma Yoga means engaging one's senses. Jnana Yoga, the advanced stage, means engagement of mind. Dhyana Yoga means intelligence. And Bhakti Yoga means engagement of the heart or of the soul. These are the 4 kinds. So Bhakti Yoga is topmost. But why? We have varieties of yogas. So who can tell us what is or which is the best yoga? If that is a question asked by any one of you or somebody asks you, so how do we answer this? A simple example. Who can say which version of Microsoft Windows is the best? Certainly the author of Windows, Bill Gates. Similarly, who can tell us who is the best yogi? The author of the knowledge of yogas, Lord Shri Krishna. Last verse of the 6th chapter, where Krishna speaks about this, Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham matkatenantaratmanah Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yuktatamo mataha. Hey Arjuna, among all the yogis, one who engages in my service, madgatinantaratmanah, Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam, with faith renders service unto me. Same yuktatamo mataha, I consider him to be the best yogi. And what is that yoga which facilitate one to engage in direct devotional service of the Lord? That is Bhakti Yoga, where one engages 24/7 by prana, artha, dhiya, vacha in the service of the Lord. So Krishna says that is the best yogi. So what is Bhakti Yoga? Bhakti Yoga means connection of soul to God. But what is the definition? That yoga which establishes our soul's love and service for Krishna is called Bhakti Yoga. In this age, the primary practice of Bhakti Yoga, or the means of establishing our loving relationship with the Lord, is mantra meditation. That is the chanting of the names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Through this person or through this process, any person from any background can attain to spiritual perfection and experience all the benefits described by Lord Shri Krishna in this chapter and elsewhere. This is the easiest and the best way to make progress. Because to chant the holy names of the Lord, which are said to be non-different than the Lord, there are no rules and regulation in any situation. Anyone from any gender, any species can chant the holy names of the Lord. So question arises, can I practice Bhakti Yoga in my family life? Many times people ask this question, can I be a family person and still practice yoga? Well, the answer is straightforward. To whom did Krishna give this knowledge of Bhakti Yoga? Arjuna. Was Arjuna sannyasi? Or did Arjuna took to sannyas after hearing Bhagavad Gita? No. Arjuna was a younger brother of a king and a family man. And Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to him and he continued to remain a grahastha, a family man. Question number 2, which people ask, how can I get the time to practice Bhakti Yoga? I don't have any time. If I have time, then I'll do it. And then people say, when I will retire in the future, when I'll have all the time, then when I'll practice Bhakti Yoga. But let me tell you one thing. You have a lot of time even today. Say yes or no, what I'm going to tell you just now. Our time zone is divided into 3 times, more or less. One is called as work time. Second is worry time. What will happen? What will happen? What will happen? And third is waste time. Spending time on social media, news, movies, entertainment, and whatnot. Yes or no? Is our time divided in these 3? So if you can reduce your worry time and waste time, you have time for practice spirituality, isn't it? And through this, you make your life successful. And gradually you reduce your worry time and waste time and turn into a spiritual time. So all of us have time. But I was told that spirituality for old age. Is spirituality a retirement program? Not at all. Life is a preparation, as it is said, and death is an examination. When the surprise test will happen, none of us know. So to say spirituality is meant for old age, what is the definition of old age? When you're about to die is called as old age. So who is old? In today's time, even a 10-year-old boy dies because of disease. So is a 10-year-old boy young or old? Who decides? What is the definition? So death can happen anytime. So life is a preparation. We should begin to prepare for this exam from now on. To conclude with, what should I do now? And this is the last subject matter which we'll be discussing for today. What should I do now? Well, very first thing, accept our condition. Accept that I am sick, I need help. Prabhuji, what are you talking? I am COVID negative, no malaria, no fever, and you're calling me I'm sick? How dare? Well, I'm not saying so. How many of you agree that all of us have 4 kinds of problems? Yes or no? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. Don't we all suffer from the sickness? This is a disease called as material disease. And not only that, we all are suffering from Adi Atmika, Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika Kalesh. 3 kinds of suffering. Are we suffering or not? Are we diseased? Yes or no? Do you agree with this? Because unless you agree, how can I move forward? Because the rest of the discussion is for those who acknowledge, yes, we are sick. We have this problem. So the very first thing is to understand what's my situation in this world. Unless a patient recognizes he's sick, how can he go and take help from doctor? So if you understand these are the causes of suffering in my life, then question comes of finding the right doctor. And that's the second step. Approach the right doctor. One who is wearing a white coat and stethoscope on his neck does not make him a doctor. Doctor means should be authorized by a university. So approach the right doctor means to find a bona fide guru, which means coming in bona fide guru parampara. As Krishna says, evam parampara praptam evam raja rishayo viduhu. So Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya, comes into the parampara which was started by Lord Shri Krishna himself. Krishna has started 4 paramparas in this creation. 1 through Brahma, other through 4 Kumaras, 3rd through Lakshmi, and 4th through Lord Shiva. So the names of 4 paramparas are Brahma Parampara, so to which we all belong. Brahma, Madhava, Gaudiya Parampara, starting from Brahma. Other parampara's name is Kumar Parampara, which starts from 4 Kumaras. 3rd is Sri Samprada or Parampara, starts from Lakshmi. And 4th is Rudra Parampara or Samprada, starts from Lord Shiva. And they all were instructed initially by Lord Shri Krishna. So somebody coming from a bona fide parampara can only be called as bona fide doctor or guru. What should I do next? Well, we have accepted the shelter of guru. We are on the way to success. But along with that, we have to do some yama and niyama. So 3rd, we have to avoid negative things. What are the negative things that we need to avoid to be progressive? First, we already discussed there are 4 pillars of dharma, and mercy is destroyed by meat eating, whereas truthfulness is destroyed by gambling, and austerity is destroyed by intoxication. Lastly, the 4th pillar of dharma, that is cleanliness, is destroyed by illicit sex. So one should avoid these 4 negative things. And to the degree we avoid this, to the degree we are becoming tuned to dharma, tuned to spiritual life, and able to stay progressive. So these are the 4 things that we need to give up. These are the foundation, basic needs of the spiritual life. Lastly, apply positive treatment, the 4th thing. What is a positive treatment? We have already discussed, so I will not go in details here, which is ABCD formula. We had established that before also. So I'll quickly run through with it. A means association of sadhus. B means wisdom literatures. C means chanting of Hare Krishna. And D refers to Krishna Prasadam. This is a shloka from Kali Santarana Upanishad which says how this chanting of holy names of the Lord is the most important activity ought to be performed by all of us to gain freedom from all kinds of suffering. Iti shodashakam nam kalikalmashanashanam natha parataropaya sarva vedeshu drishyate. After searching through all the Vedic literatures, one cannot find a method of religion more sublime for this age than the chanting of Hare Krishna. And finally, D, Krishna Prasadam. So apply positive treatment means to regularly, every day, follow this ABCD formula. And with this, we come to the conclusion of chapter 6, titled as Dhyana Yoga, wherein we saw 4 aspects of discussion. First, mind, if it is uncontrolled, our greatest enemy. If mind is unhealthy, it makes our life hellish. Krishna says, control your mind, and then mind becomes the best of your friend. How do we control the mind? Krishna speaks about Ashtanga Yoga process, which Arjuna rejects us. And then Krishna gives him the process of Abhyasena Kanteya Vairagya Chagrihate, Yama and Niyama of Bhakti Yoga. And then Arjuna asks, my dear Lord, what happened to those who get distracted? There are 2 kinds of people who come to process of yoga. One, who are not serious, they are casual. So after short practice, they give it up. Others who are serious, sincere practitioners, but later on they get distracted. What happens to them? Arjuna asked, and Krishna said, don't worry. They're on the path of success moving forward. And finally, Krishna says, be a yogi. And Krishna gives his conclusion on who is the best yogi. And the best yogi is one, Mad Gatena Antaratmana Shraddhavan Bhajate Yomam, one who renders devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, beginning with the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, following 4 regulative principles like that, and reading of scriptures. Such a person becomes very dear to the Lord. And this is how the 6th chapter ends, with which the first segment of the 18 chapters concludes. Tomorrow onwards, we'll be beginning our 2nd section of Bhagavad Gita, which is called as Bhakti Yoga section, from wherein chapter number 7 to 12, Lord Shri Krishna is going to go into the details of his opulences or the opulences of the Bhagwan, and will be a very interesting discussion, which we shall have tomorrow. With that, we conclude for today here. Thank you all for joining us for today evening. And it's incredible. I concluded 2 minutes before. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Mother Dipasha or Shikhar Prabhu, whoever of you online, back to you now.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for telling us the easier path than the Ashtanga Yoga. So, Prabhuji, we are having lots of questions. So far, I have collected few questions, and if they are online, I request them to be available or visible. So the first question is from Devesha Prabhuji. Prabhuji, are you there, Devesha ji? And the question you had put on the chat was, does the yogi, which was defined in shloka numbers, chapter numbers 6.57, shloka number 57, is doing his worldly duties like doctor treating patient, engineer doing technical work, or a lady doing household work? Are they also under the yogi condition, or only the person who are going to do Krishna conscious work?
I mean, this is, I guess you're having a doubt on the fundamental word, what yoga. As I said, yoga means your activities which helps you establish your relationship with the Lord. If you're performing your duties in that understanding, then it is yoga. If not, it is not yoga. Can I have gallery view, please? All right. So somebody is cooking in the kitchen is yoga for one and is not yoga for other. Why? The one who is cooking in the kitchen, if that person is conscious that this is in service of the Lord, I'm going to cook and offer to the Lord and then honor it as Krishna Prasadam and is conscious of Krishna, then it is called as yoga. However, somebody is just performing his vanashrama, his duties, that is not called as yoga. It is called as Shrama Evahi Kevalam. It's a useless labor because it does not give you love of Godhead. This is the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, thereafter, I have few questions received from Srinath ji.
If they want to ask themselves, that's better. If you want to read, if you're not there, that's also fine. But let's give preference to one who wants to ask in person.
Srinath ji, are you there? Yeah.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, actually, after listening to this chapter, as you told, mind is a friend and enemy. So what happens? Suppose I'm doing some tasks. I start a task, I'm focused, doing 15 minutes. The 16th minute, something else will come in the mind. And the 17th minute, you're going to start what you started. You stop over there halfway. You start the other activity. Stop. That was halfway. and then go back. So how to control that? Suppose your boss calls in the middle, okay, this has to be done. Everything gets a mixed jumble up.
Agreed.
Understand that, how
This,
to control that area.
yeah, that's the whole idea. The yoga process helps us to rise above this distractions. See, all of us have got a very powerful tool given by the Lord, that is mind. It's more powerful than even the greatest supercomputer ever built. And we all know what's the IQ level. We use very limited IQ in action, less than 7, if I'm correct,
Yes.
in that way. So the whole practice of yoga actually allows us to cultivate the ability to increase our focus in the activity being done in the present. In general, our lifestyle is such, our lifestyle in general of those who are not connected to any spiritual lifestyle, where the mind is withered, is diversified in all the directions. Wherever they look, they get distracted. So easily get distracted and carried away. So the whole process of yoga at the material level builds or gives us a strength to live a distraction-free life. So it's a process. We need to practice it, and gradually that happens. You're getting the point? Through the practice abhyasena, through the practice of what we just discussed of chanting of the holiness of the Lord, cultivating a lifestyle around it, sleeping up early, getting up early. Sorry, sleeping up early, yeah, sleeping early, getting up early, following a vegetarian diet regimen, keeping a good association. It all does that. Think about Srila Prabhupada. A 70-year-old man, old man, goes to America, and that is the time when he starts to translate Sanskrit into English. And by the time of 70, people don't even remember most of the things. And he continued to do at the age of 82. He's on his final phase of life. He cannot speak. He has not eaten for 1 whole month because now is the time for Prabhupada to leave, depart. And even at that point of time, he's doing the commentary, and the disciples are holding a dictaphone right onto his mouth, and Prabhupada is still giving commentary. So disciple would read out a Sanskrit, Prabhupada would hear it and immediately would give the translation to it and commentary to it. Can you imagine? How is it possible? And a man of that age to manage a worldwide movement of all kind of fellows, strangest of the characters ever found in the world, coming to the movement and turning them into a human being and then into a saintly being. What a tedious task. And doing it all by himself without no support of any of his contemporaries, any of his god brothers. So never undermine the practice and the results of yoga. Sharpens our mind and intelligence beyond our limit and understanding. All right?
Yes. Okay, Prabhuji, I had one more question.
Yes.
Right from the upbringing of from our families, and after a particular age, okay, we were taught about different scriptures like Ramayana and Hanuman Chalisa, a lot of things, and we didn't got any kind of guru about whom we spoke. So
Correct.
how can we take it ahead? How can we know who is the right guru, who can preach us, who can give us the right path?
See, I do acknowledge and understand it's a very important subject matter. And I'm not sure if I had been discussing in the Hindi group or maybe your group. Probably in Hindi group, we had a lot of discussion on this subject. So I'll just say the answer again. See, anything you want to know is good or not. The value is known by its result.
Correct.
Simple. The boy is intelligent. We'll get to know how he scores in the mark or how he scores in the final exam. Simple. You're a great batsman. We'll know when you play a final World Cup match and how you do deal with the pressure. You know, playing a gilli danda in the roadside cricket, it doesn't make you a great cricket man, isn't it, a batsman? So the result matters. The result proves what you are. Similarly, a genuine guru is identified as a person who speaks what Krishna speaks. Krishna says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyajiman namas. Krishna says, engage in my devotion service. Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityaja maam ekam sharanam. Fully dependent on me, give up all religious practice, take my shelter. So who is a bona fide guru?
Krishna.
Who creates a system, creates a culture which provides a facility for an individual to fully become dependent on Krishna.
Okay, correct.
Who teaches us, creates a facility for us to remember Krishna, who engages in the service of the Krishna, because Krishna wants that, na? That is Bhakti Yoga. Manmana Bhavadbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru and the Sarva Dharman Pratya Shloka and many other shlokas like that. So one who tells us what Krishna told us would be a genuine guru, yes or no?
Yes, agree.
Just imagine the postman brings a letter for you. How do you know he's a bona fide postman? And the postman is coming from a government authorized post office, not just because you put a dress of a postman becomes a bona fide postman. First of all, he's authorized by the government agency, the government post office. And secondly, he's bringing the message which is meant for you.
Yes, agree.
So not only he brings the message, but he's also authorized by the government agency. So the parampara is an authorization of the Lord.
Okay.
And how do we know he's bona fide? The message that he's giving is actually the message of the Lord for all of us. What Krishna spoke 5,000 years ago is what that Guru also repeats. Guru never says, surrender unto me and I'll make you great. Guru says, surrender unto Krishna and you will become great.
Okay. Thank you, Guruji.
Please read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita's commentary. You will learn a lot on this subject matter. Okay?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Next question is from Anupama ji. Anupama ji, are you there? Are you online? Would you like to ask a question? You may unmute yourself. Okay. Her question was that why tea is in the intoxication category?
Intoxication refers to anything that makes us dependent. Is she still there?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna,
Okay, great.
Prabhuji.
Great. So, Anupma, do you feel any kind of dependency on a tea?
Yes, Prabhuji.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
You got the
Yeah. I mean, I find it easy to drop non-veg and drink and everything, but now tea is really difficult to leave for me.
So when it comes to tea and coffee, therefore Prabhupada have said, because it makes us slave of that particular item. We are not having an independent living still. To be fully independent, we need to give up such kind of activities. If we don't have it, I know of it. I'll make a confession, like for myself. I grew up in a culture where every day we'll have a tea because my parents will take it. They took it, we took it because we never saw it as any harm.
Yes.
So when I came into spiritual life back in America in those days, and they said, "Oh, you have to give up tea," I told I'll give everything but not tea. Hell with you all. I'm going away. I don't care what you talk about. Because my situation became so bad. If I don't have a tea a day, I will get a headache.
Yes, same here. Same situation, Prabhuji.
And this is not only my story. This is a story of my parents, my relatives. They all are practicing devotees. They all left everything. And that's the wonder and miracle of Krishna consciousness. You just have to make one sincere prayer to the Lord. And whoop, next morning you might not even remember ever you drank a tea. When you will smell a tea, you'll feel disgusted. Of course, a sincerity factor counts a lot. At least for me, it just disappeared the very next morning when I decided I'm not going to do it. Of course, the very next day I had a headache. I persisted with it and I tried to find alternative means. Well, you are in India. I was in America. I didn't have easy access to alternative means. In India, if you're in Pune or wherever you are, if you have a ISKCON temple nearby, go to the gift stall and you'll get a herbal tea.
Okay.
Get a herbal tea. That's it. It's just same. That little lurking that we have will easily go away.
Okay.
And this little steps builds our determination to move forward.
Okay, I will try that then.
And that's how we need to move forward. And it's all possible. I can do it. Why can't you do it? I'm pretty sure you can do far better than I did it.
I'll try, Prabhuji. Thank you for that.
Give an attempt. Give a try.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Even it tastes better and it has certain herbs, so which are gonna even beneficial for your health also. So they have a very nice mixtures available in NBCC shops. Thank you,
Okay.
Prabhuji.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, so you may try that.
Hare
So
Krishna.
Prabhuji, now I
Hare
can
Krishna,
see
Prabhuji.
raised hands from our kids. So Jagannath Prabhu is having question, Adi Lakshman is having question, and Sai Shashwat is having some question.
I guess you should address kids. I'm not good with kids. You're the kids teachers. So let kids ask question to our host today. I'll listen to the answer. Okay, so go ahead. Whoever wants to go first, you can ask a question to Mother Dipasha.
Prabhuji, then what about drinking green tea?
Who is speaking?
Rajita,
Oh, yes. What's your question?
what about the green tea then?
See, green tea is in a gray area. I'm also not very sure of that. Of course, see, I'll tell you, in the market, whatever is sold, they say pure cow milk. You might have seen, but you know very well it's not a pure cow milk. There's a lot of adulteration. Similarly, they show a green tea and they'll show the leaves of some Chinese plants and whatnot, but it is not that. It only has a fraction of it. So you have to very carefully look into the details of the subject matter. So therefore, ISKCON and devotees in ISKCON, they have created their own green tea, what they call as herbal tea. There are also teas made of the leaves, but there are no any element added. See, for any commercial success, I don't know if they do it in India or not, but I remember at one point of time, I became very addictive. When I was a young kid, I used to eat Uncle Chips. You remember Uncle Chips that would fit around the finger? Those balls will go around the finger and we'll play around, put into the finger and eat it like this. So similar kind of a snack was there that I found on the store in America where I was living. And somehow I love this kind of a stuff, as a kind of spicy thing. So I got a one pack and I became so tempted to eat again and again that almost every day I began to eat a lot of it. And suddenly then one of the devotee got to know of it that I'm eating this. And that mother told me, show me the pack, and show the pack. And then she showed me that this particular the item has an ingredient within itself which is meant to create addiction. So many companies add an addictive chemical in the products. So you become addictive, right? When you become addictive, you're forced to eat, you're tempted, you can't help it. So this is when I realized it. Of course, it was a little painful for me to give it up, but I determined to give up because I didn't want to become a slave to my addictions. So then I gave up that. So with commercial things, we have to be careful because they don't see you as a person; they see you as a product to be sold again and again. That's the whole point. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Adi Lakshman, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, so your question goes to the host, okay, Mother Dipasha.
No, Prabhuji, in front of you, I won't be able to.
No problem. Go ahead. I'm also attending the session. You are as much as a teacher as I am teacher for the kids. You also teach them. So go ahead.
Mataji, I have a doubt that I could not access the our page. When I take it, I could not load it. Student portal.
Okay, you just message me, Adi Lakshman. I'll send you the step-by-step procedure. This was very easy question for me at least. Okay. So maybe
Yes,
I'll give you my number and you just WhatsApp me. Okay, I'll share you the WhatsApp step-by-step procedures.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, Jagannath Prabhu, you have a question?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, I have a question that was Arjun said yes that it's easy to do the Ashtanga yoga because if it's so hard for me to stay seated with folded legs in a lecture for almost 30 minutes also. So how could a man say yes, it's easy to do Ashtanga yoga? So was Arjun said yes?
I believe not, else we were not required to have chapter 7, and we have chapter 7 in Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, so the sloka is like that, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Maya Sakta Manha Partha Yogam Yujanamadashraya Asasyam Samagramma Yatha Gyayasyasi Trakshanu. हे प्रतापुत्र, अब सुनो कि तुम किस तरह मेरी भावना से पूर्ण होकर मन को मुझ में आसक्त करके योगाभ्यास करते हुए मुझे पूर्णतः संशय रहित जान सकते हो. So I believe Krishna was aware that what is the feeling or what is going on inside the mind of Arjuna, and he must also be thinking that if Jagannath Prabhu is not able to sit for 1 or 1.5 hours like this, so how can Arjuna do Ashtanga yoga? So Arjuna didn't ask explicitly, but it was there in his mind, and Krishna could read that mind, and Krishna himself started saying in chapter 7 shloka number 1 that now I'll tell you the path that how you can have a kind of yoga where you can what we can say work so
Bhakti yoga.
bhakti yoga. So by engaging in my activities or by engaging in my devotion service, you can attain the bhakti, the yoga. So I believe so that it was implicit in the mind of Arjuna. Maybe Prabhuji can suggest.
Wonderful answer. Thank you. Correct. Good.
Mataji,
Jagannath,
I have a
just a quick correction. Arjuna never said that Ashtanga Yoga is easy. Probably you found it easy or you heard it that way. All right. So thank you. You can have your second question later on. We'll move ahead. Is there any other kid here? Sai Saswat.
Yes,
Sai, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
No, Mataji.
Okay.
Yes, Sai, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji. How to keep the mind in our control?
Mother Dipasha, internet connection. I guess your voice is breaking.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, are you hear me?
Yeah. Now it's audible.
Yes. So related to this, I can only remember one shloka where Krishna is saying that it's very difficult to control your senses. Then obviously it is much difficult to control your mind, right? So controlling mind is very difficult. So it's better to engage our senses and mind into the devotional services where we can get higher nectar. So like param dashtani vartate. So if we can have that higher level of rasa, if we can engage our senses, so if we'll be able to engage our senses, I believe the mind will also follow that path, because as Prabhuji told that story that there are 3 gates, right? So first gate is the senses, and then the next is the mind and the intelligence. So if we can if we can engage the first gate itself into a better, what we can say, activity, which is directly related to the Krishna, so controlling mind will be much easier. I hope I justify. But
Wonderful. Correct. And Sai, for your age, chant Hare Krishna. All the rest will be taken care, all right? That's for you an immediate action item. So thank you, kids. Mother Dipasha, is there anything from the seniors?
Prabhuji, there was one, what we can say, I don't know the question or comment. There was one line via Suren Kalantari ji, and he was saying, no man's land. That is what going in my mind from so many days when the session starts. So I request Suren Kalantari ji, what was the question behind it, or what was the? I can see you are online. Suren Kalantari ji. You may unmute yourself.
Yes. Now you are hearing?
Yes, I'm able to.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी.
हरे कृष्ण.
जैसा कि आपने बताया कि जो नो मैंस लैंड है,
Yes.
हमें जो आगे चल के बीच में जाके रुक जाते हैं ड्यू टू वर्ल्ड.
Okay.
तो उसके लिए फिर क्या करना चाहिए, मतलब वहां पर जाके आप
All right. See, that is the whole question that Arjuna asked. हे प्रभु, हे भगवान, कोई व्यक्ति आध्यात्मिक जीवन में आगे जाके भटक जाता है तो क्या वो नो मैंस लैंड में अटक जाता है? भगवान कहते हैं कतई नहीं, not at all. So the no man's land does not exist only for a devotee or for a spiritualist. Getting the point? Arjuna asked the question that is there a no man's land for a practitioner if he gets distracted? Lord says no, no man's land does not exist only. Even if you're not progressive, even if you get distracted, in your next life, you'll continue from wherever you ended. So there is no man's land. There is no pessimism. There is no negativity. There is no hopelessness. In the path of spirituality, there is only hope. Hope and hope and hope of reaching the end, either today or tomorrow. Only time separates. All right?
So you can start any time if you stop sometimes back.
Yes, if for some reason we have got distracted, we can always, whatever spiritual credit we have earned, we never lose it.
Okay.
We start again from there. Krishna promises of this and Bhagavad Gita at 2-3 places discussion comes.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
Okay, thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. Akriti, question. Akriti, would you like to ask your question?
Hanji Matsi. Prabhuji, I had a small query on the point where in which we spoke about how even if you engage in Krishna consciousness for a shorter duration, you take birth in an aristocrat family. You do it for a longer duration, then you take birth in a devotee's family. So I had a question pertaining to Bharat Maharaj. I remember my mom telling me the story in
Correct.
Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein
Yes.
which he was a staunch follower of Lord Krishna, and eventually he went to the forest to completely engage in it, and then he fell in love with this. He used to take care of this deer, and in the next birth he
Correct.
became. So why was he not
Yeah.
like?
Good question. So she is quoting a case of a story which is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. And the story talks about how a great king went on to become a great devotee. However, for some reason, got distracted at the later stage, developed strong attachment for a deer. And while he was giving up his body, he was remembering the deer. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam taya jatiyante kalevaram. 8th chapter, verse number 6, if I'm correct. At the time of giving up your body, whatever you remember, is that what will happen in the next life. So, according to this rule, Bharat Maharaj was supposed to get a deer body. He did got a deer body. But yet Krishna says, Nehami karmanashosi pratyavayo navidyate swalpamasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. This was a big danger. Death is a big danger because you don't know what life, next yoni, or body will get. Krishna says, you're always protected. How Bharat Maharaj was protected in his next life? Even in the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj, in the body of a deer, had a complete remembrance of his past life. He knew he was, how he fell into this body. Therefore, when he took the body of a deer, he went straight to the ashram hermitage and lived whatever years of life as a deer, always in the association of the sadhus, which was a very temporary situation. And when he gave up that body, he was born as one of the greatest devotees by the name of Jada Bharat, which was his last life, and then he went back to Godhead. All right.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So it's 8:55, I see. I believe you have taken questions for everyone.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So thank you so much for joining. I hope you all are taking advantage of the student portal, able to get access to the PPTs, recorded sessions, and the quizzes. So see you again tomorrow, probably in 22 hours and 6 minutes from now. Hare Krishna. I'll take your leave.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, and thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for joining today's session. If you have any feedback, then please do share with us. If you're having any technical issues in accessing your student portal, you may WhatsApp whatever issue you are having. Maybe you can share the screenshot and we'll try to resolve as soon as possible. So please keep on sharing your feedback. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. It was very nice class.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna Jagannath.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna Shreyaditi. Hare Krishna Rajita. Hare Krishna Sai Shashwat.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Rajita. Thank you so much.